I'll be honest here. I cannot get into roguelikes. I have played several of them. Enter the Gungeon, Dead Cells, Risk of Rain, and yes, they are very fun games with a very satisfying combat, but I just don't vibe with them. It's not the permadeath or the skilling difficulty that's the problem, but it's mostly the RNG aspect, and that's a core part in a roguelike game. So it's a crazy thing that Hades is the very first one in the genre that I absolutely love, and at the same time it is the very first roguelike where I had a successful run. The premise of Hades is that you are Zagreus, the son of Hades, and you are trying to escape from the underworld. But it is very difficult to do so, and once you die, you have to start all the way from the beginning. That's the premise. A roguelike has 5 things: permadeath, procedurally generated level design, RNG progression, difficulty, and a deep lore. Now, Hades has all the qualities of a roguelike, but it approaches the roguelike genre in a way different from most roguelike games. Firstly, you don't drop all loot you collect. The only thing you drop are the boons and upgrades that you collect. The currency and some items are still kept with you to be spent on. The mirror is available to you to make a permanent upgrade on yourself. Sure, it's not a direct stat upgrade like increasing your damage or durability, but it does make a difference in your runs. You have a wide selection of weapons you can also upgrade. You unlock Death Defiance that gives you a second chance once you die, or Stubborn Defiance that is basically Death Defiance but is usable once. Per chamber. In fact, Hades is the only roguelike I know of that has a god mode option in the settings. Of all the roguelikes I have played, Hades is the most accessible and arguably the easiest roguelike in the genre. The combat is very satisfying and very good. It flows so well and is well polished and very consistent. The combat is simple and easy to pick up like most roguelikes, and it's basically attack, special attack, dash, and cast, or if you can unlock it, a call. It's a bit more skill based than most roguelikes, but what expands it are the boons you collect, which you get from Olympian gods you meet during your journey. There are upgrades with various effects and abilities and are completely found randomly. Then there's the Delos Hammer that changes the behavior of your weapon. There's the Chaos Boon that you get when you meet Chaos, but you have to undergo a Chaos course, which is basically a condition placed on you for a limited number of runs depending on which boon you pick. There's also the Mirror of Nyx that you also use to upgrade yourself using darkness. I am not going to explain more since it's a review and not a wiki page, but the entire point is that Hades has a satisfying expanded combat system with a level of player choice and randomness. You don't know how your run would be like or what build you will end up with. Maybe you may have a bad run with a bad build, or a very good run with all your builds blending together well, and once you have that one successful run, it is very exhilarating. But that's not the thing that did it for me. No, it's not the combat or the sandbox, but its polish. Hades is a very polished game. In fact, it's so polished to the point it rivals even the best AAA games. And that's a game made by a AA studio. Everything about this game is just well polished and well made, and the people that made this game are obviously good at their jobs. The UI nails the usability and aesthetic aspect, and it's very seamless to go through. The game is easy to run with little performance problems. I have rarely witnessed frame drops, and that's refreshing in a time where AAA games still can't figure out how to optimize their games. The combat is satisfying, not just mechanically but visually, and the game is visually pleasing with an art style that stands out. The sound design is really well made, and the soundtracks, I am not even going to describe how good they really are in a Spotify playlist, but they really add to the gameplay and the atmosphere, making the game even more immersive. There is nothing, absolutely nothing that is out of place in this game. Everything gels together and gels real well, and it's so well polished that I have to give credit to developers. I say I Hades take the roguelike approach differently, but not just in its gameplay but also in its story. It is the first game I have ever seen that uses its roguelike nature to tell a story. While it is lore deep like most roguelike, it also has an underlying narrative, with the plot unfolding the more you play the game, giving the game a sense of mystery. And the way they approached the storytelling was nice if you think about how well the plot, lore, and the gameplay all work together to make the game more believable. It is not even just a simple plot line or a premise. There are several plot lines and subplot lines to get interested in, so the plot has a level of depth, and the game has very good characters with, contrary to Kotaku's opinion, a very good body variety. Can't believe that. See that. It's practically a nice novel. It's practically a light novel with how big and deep the story actually is. But the core reason why I felt Hades' storytelling is really good is because it tells a story using its roguelike nature. Hades is the first game I've ever seen that uses its roguelike nature as a core part of its storytelling. It explains why it's a roguelike using its lore, and with its plot slowly unraveling as you play the game, and it's paced in a way that enables you to have a grasp of the story and the lore without the game making an exposition dump and lecturing you about the lore and its characters. You even collect nectars to give to characters to deepen your relationship with them. And all this means that one successful run doesn't mean you have finished the game. You have to make multiple runs to unwrap the entire plot, which gives it a huge replay value. Alright, I have a few gripes to the game though. While it makes its roguelike approach differently compared to most roguelikes, it's at the detriment of its size. Hades is a way more watered down version of your typical roguelike, and while it's not a problem for someone new to the genre, it is tame if you played other roguelikes before this. It has less content, enemy variety, less weapons, less tools, and simpler upgrades than most roguelikes. And because of its relatively smaller scale, it can get a bit repetitive. Now, I don't mean by default, but when its enemy variety is relatively small and when you finally get the hang of its enemies, it can get repetitive actually. And about my dislike for RNG, yeah, Hades has that annoyance too. Because its loot and progression are completely random, you will definitely enter runs that are so frustrating because you are either underpowered or had a terrible build despite you having a decent skill and knowledge of the game. It can get really daunting and many people drop the game because of this. But those are my only gripes about the game so far. Yes, it's smaller, distilled, and more dumbed down compared to most roguelikes, but it's still a very huge game packed with content. And yes, its RNG can be annoying at times, but it is still forgiving and it's not as annoying as other roguelikes. Hades is an amazing game. Amazing story, amazing art direction, amazing gameplay, and a very well presented game. A straight up 9 out of 10 masterpiece. It has so much content that I could play for hours and not discover everything in the game yet. I can spend hours in a good chat discussing about the game and how good it is, but I can't do it in a review. Trust me, I tried and this is my third time pricing this script, but all in all, it's a hell of a game. The developers put so much passion into it and I'm really looking forward to playing the sequel.